you became a suicide awareness advocate. So
Yeah.
take us through that. Why did you actually want to have that need?
Yeah, I think that um, just losing my son to suicide just kind of guided me down that path, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But beforehand, I was not that aware of mental health issues and had a lot of misconceptions about suicide. So going through that whole process really helped me to learn a lot more about it. Some of the things that I thought early on was that mental health was something we don't want to talk about. And when my son had to go to the psychiatrist and start getting medication, um, he didn't want to talk about it. He didn't want to talk about it with me. I didn't ask a lot of questions about it because he wasn't answering me too much.
Mm,
But he took the medication for a while, but he didn't like the way that it made him feel. So eventually he stopped taking it and stopped going to the psychiatrist. I'm not sure what his actual diagnosis was, but just looking at some of the symptoms and some of the things that other people that have been around him at the time saw, I think that he had some form of bipolar disorder because
mm,
he would shift his emotions would shift very quickly, go from being very happy to being very angry, um, and just back and forth. So there were just a lot of emotions there that
mm,
we couldn't really explain. But when he was on the medication, it seemed to help him quite a bit. But again, he didn't like the way it made him feel. So one of the things that, from a suicide perspective, I did not want to ask him questions, ask him if he's thinking about suicide. He, I think that that was just something from my generation. We don't want to talk about suicide. We don't want to talk about mental
mm,
health. And um, in doing so, I think that I lost an opportunity there to just have a really good discussion with him just to see where
mm,
he was.
mm,
So, but
mm,
the uh, it was like just about 5 days before he took his life, he came to our house and we had dinner and we were talking. He had just broken up with his girlfriend about a week and a half earlier, and he was really down about that because they'd been together about 6 years. So I was really
mm,
concerned that he may do something like take his life. But again, when he came over, he was really happy and
mm,
he seemed to be in a really good place. He had all these plans to go visit a lot of his friends, and uh,
mm,
it was just a really good dinner. And one of the questions I always wanted to have answered from him, because he and his me and his mom were divorced at the time, and he always favored his mom over me. But when we divorced, he ended up having to live with me instead of living with her, which he wanted. Um, but we got to develop a pretty good relationship, a much better relationship over that time. But after dinner, he said, "Dad, I know that I haven't always been the greatest son, but you've always been a great dad." And that's something I always wanted to hear come from him, just how he felt about me. I didn't care which way it went, but it felt good to have him say that. And again, I felt really good about the evening. I wasn't expecting what was going to happen in the next, 4 days, 5 days.